Hello everybody. Since it's like negative 35 degrees outside, it really got me into the black metal mood, you know what I mean? So I figured why not talk about a book I actually just finished recently, all about the history of the original black metal scene, and that would be Lords of Chaos, which was put out by none other than Feral House Books, icon, you can see that. And it was written by Michael Moynihan and Didrik Soderlin. I don't know about too much about Didrik Soderlin. Also, I'm sorry about pronunciations on both parties. I know he's like a Norwegian humanist writer, and he helped translate this book. Like a lot of the interviews, obviously, are in different languages. But I do know about Michael Moynihan. Now, he is from the band Blood Axis, or a group. I think it's a group of two, like him and a female that I can't think of her name, which are fantastic. If you don't know Blood Axis, they're like a martial industrial neo-folk group. And if you enjoy that kind of sound and scene, you should definitely check them out. Even if you enjoy stuff like Death in June, Of the Wand and Moon, King Dude, all that kind of stuff, you definitely want to check out Blood Axis. In fact, they're also in this book that isn't put out by Feral House, but if you ever are curious about all that, there is a book called Looking for Europe, The History of Neofolk. But I might talk about this book in a different video, but this is fantastic. But yeah, if you like this stuff, Blood Axis. But anyway, we are currently listening to, I don't know if you can hear it, the turntable is kind of in the other room, listening to Nocturnal Emissions, Spirit Flesh, which was put out on Mannequin Records. I'm doing the whole natural lighting thing, so a lot of things won't show up. I like this, I don't care. Here's the back. The record itself is like this marble gray, it's really cool. I like the sepia tone of just the canyon cover and the white. But yeah, Nocturnal Emissions, if you don't know them, an industrial group, but they definitely toe around like dark ambient like this album does. Sometimes it kind of more on the power electronic side. When I first heard them, I listened to an album called Drowning in a Sea of Bliss, and the title kind of matches the music. If you're into total like noise and power electronics and just that harsh synth sound, you'll definitely be drowning in a sea of bliss. But they're fantastic. If anyone's curious about just dark ambient industrial, I definitely say they're in my top 10 industrial acts. Nocturnal Emissions, fantastic. But enough about that. We gotta talk about Lords of Chaos. So, I originally found out about this book actually from an episode of Amoeba, What's in My Bag. It was an episode featuring Ghost, and I'm not entirely sure which member of Ghost it was. I don't know too much about Ghost, but I like to check out the series because I think it's a really just fun way to learn about Rex too. Even bands I've never even heard of or don't like to. It's just fun, you know. But I'll leave that link in the description too if you're curious. But one of the things he talked about was this book, and he was praising it. And I was like, you know what? I really do love learning about the history of black metal. I'd almost say this book is kind of like the book equivalent of one of my favorite documentaries ever, which is Until the Light Takes Us. Basically, this is like the equivalent here. Also got the special edition. Look at those eyes. Ooh. And if you haven't seen this, it's fantastic. It's definitely kind of like a lower budget documentary, but don't let that deter you. It's fantastic. Even if you don't like black metal, and you just like music in general, or just the history of stuff, or just like a history buff, because this has to do with like the Satanic Panic and other crazy stuff, or you're just interested in kind of kids being kids or juvenile delinquent type stuff and just how it can escalate, check this out. The black metal scene as a whole, check it out. It's very fascinating, which is one of the reasons I picked this up. One more side note before the actual contents of the book too. Again, a little rant about Feral House. Totally check out Feral House books. They put out a lot of fantastic stuff. A lot about music, a lot of like just esoteric stuff in general. One of the first books I ever read for them was The Choosing Death, which many consider like the Bible of like death metal history and grindcore. It's fantastic stuff. I kind of wish that there's like a updated version that's like almost like 2 of these put together, but either way, if you're curious about that history, which I'm not even the biggest death metal person, but I love just reading about music history, great stuff. Definitely check it out. They also put out stuff like the Psychic Bible. This one's thick. Yeah, Genesis, crazy stuff. Psychic Bible, what is there to say? I haven't read this one yet, so it's still fresh, but look at that spine. But I'm definitely excited to read this, so that's definitely on my checkout list. They also put out stuff like Francois Hardy's autobiography, which I think is called The Despair of Monkeys. They have stuff like Blood, Fire, Death, the Swedish death metal story, which covers like all Swedish death metal. It's fantastic. They have books on like the Process Church. They have stuff on like JFK, like anything hardcore. They have coloring books for David Bowie and black metal. Crazy cats. One more from them I haven't read yet is another book on black metal. This one's by Deitel Patterson. It's called Evolution of the Cult. And I think this isn't so much the history as it is probably just talking about the cult of black metal or scene or whatever way you want to put it. But I've been looking for this one for a while. I found it at a record store and I'm pretty excited. Maybe I'll probably do a video on this too because I like to talk about books. So now you're probably like, yes, get on with the book. Anyway, but yeah. So this covers the history of the early black metal scene. If you didn't know, that included people like Mayhem, Dark Throne, Burzum, Varg, that whole thing. It goes into everything from, the murder of Euronymous and self-defense, to the tragic tale of Dead and his suicide. A lot of fantastic pictures. It talks about, talks a lot about the church burnings. Like, there's photos on almost every page, too. Like, great stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of stuff just speaks for itself. They got newspaper clips. They interview, like, the police officers working on the case at the time. They just have, sometimes they just throw in pictures of just beautiful Norway and Sweden and all that. 'Cause they talk about all that. They even go into, like, the French and German black metal scene, too, because as much as a lot of people know about, like, the Norwegian, like, crazy stuff that was going on, a lot of stuff was happening in, like, Germany and even England. Lots of murders and stuff, and this book covers a lot of that. I mean, as you can see, it's got stuff about, like, Hendrik Mobus on here, Bard Foss, which a lot of people don't remember these. Like, they always know about, like, Varg killing Euronymous, but they don't know about, like, the other murders that have happened, too. It was a big deal. Lots of church burnings. They even talk about, I was surprised, oh yeah, they have, a picture of Dead's unfortunate suicide. That part always made me sad, just like how, like, indifferent everybody was to it. But, that's a personal thing. They got pictures of the Helvete shop, the Hell record store, which, just because of my love for music, I wish I could have seen it, just, like, seen it. I'm also just a big record store fanatic, so here's more pictures of it. They talk about even like Psy, the Japanese early black metal band. Great stuff. More of the record store. I just love these shots of the record store. I just think it's wicked cool. These kids just came together, just made this super edgy record store. But then again, they're also pretty delinquent and done a lot of awful things. But, a lot of good things came out of the black metal scene. A lot of bad things, but a lot of fantastic music. And, it's a culture that has brought together a lot of fans and friends. I made a lot of friends with the black metal scene. So, it's like every scene. Although, there's a lot of bad stuff in this scene. Of course, we get a lot of pictures of Varg going on here. He has a lot of interviews here. And I like that, the book, all the interviews and all the discussion it's very apolitical, very A-sided, like no one's taking any sides, they're just throwing the information out and I guess you just kind of decide. They have a whole chapter dedicated to Count Quisling. I can't pronounce that, I apologize. If I had some misgivings about this book, I do have to say there's 2 chapters or parts that kind of prattle on a little too long. I mean, obviously they would talk about the Satanic Panic a lot, and they kind of like go into depth of like why there'd be like Satanists in Norway and like why people would be so afraid of it. But it kind of just goes on and on and on and on about just satanic stuff and like why these kids are into satanic and what is Satanism, all stuff. Like, it's very interesting, but at the same time, I don't know. If I was interested in reading about the Satanic Panic, I'd probably read one of the books they put out on it. So it did kind of linger a little bit. Talked about this case too, about the classmates killing the other classmate in Germany, the black metal scene. And I think the other one too, it talks a lot about right-wingers and like the whole like Aryan right side of Norway and just Europe in general and all that stuff. Obviously it talks a lot about Varg, so it talks a lot about the Aryan stuff that he was involved in, which is very interesting and fascinating. But again, it just like goes on a lot, and it's like, you know, this could be its own book just about it, you know, Aryan stuff, which they do have a book on it, and Nazi propaganda and all that. They just kind of shoehorn it in like a little too much. Just kind of lingers on a little too much. But those are my only misgivings, which sound like a big deal, but I enjoyed reading it a lot. Read it pretty fast too. I enjoyed it. And I think if you just love music history in general, metal, black metal, you get a fresh, unbiased look at it, basically like a good interviewer, reportist would. Just shows you the information, you figure out the rest, decide the rest, all that. Well written, nicely written, very fascinating. Lots of interviews. They pretty much got like everyone, even people who like have murdered others. It's great. Well, that's not great, but just hearing these people talk. Some of these people are just batshit insane, and it's just fascinating. It's just all fascinating, like a spectacle to watch, you know. But yeah, also just listen to more black metal. Black metal's great. You don't have to agree with the people, and you probably shouldn't, but you know, you can always separate art from artists the best you can. But I'm probably just gonna listen to some more industrial and black metal today, considering it's, again, like -32 out, probably worse. But yeah, everyone else that's stuck in this Arctic cold, I hope you all stay warm and, you know, have a good day.